Welcome to Bloodbath and Beyond. Today we're doing a retrospective review of Graduation Day. The class of '81 is running out of time.
Directed by Herb Fried, starring Christopher George, Patch Mackenzie, and E. Danny Murphy, Graduation Day is about a track team approaching graduation. And unfortunately, one of their members suffers a blood clot and dies on the field. Shortly after, a mysterious figure starts killing people that all are on the track team. There will be spoilers, so this is probably gonna be a little bit longer than you're used to, and that's why we wanted to make this spin-off show so we could talk about 80s movies. So let's go. What do we like?
I liked the mystery of who the killer was in this film. You didn't know who it was. It seemed like everyone was related to this killer, and they did a really good job concealing their identity.
Almost everybody is the red herring. And that's great because it just keeps you thinking like, oh, is it him? Is it her? Oh, this person just came from out of town. It might be them. Every situation is going to try and pretend like they're the killer. And that's the fun.
It seemed like everyone had a pair of gloves and a stopwatch. Like every single person was like rocking it.
And because they're all on the track team, they all have track pants. I liked our characters because, you know, they're typical high school students in the 80s. All in their mid-40s, big hair, tight pants.
I hear narcs are an endangered species.
They're not very bright. You see, instead of migrating in the winter, they fly up their own assholes and mate with themselves.
They didn't have much personality.
The person who had the most personality was Mr. Roberts, who he had his screen time at the beginning, but was pretty much useless in the sense of furthering the story in relation to killing people off. Because, like, that went nowhere, but I liked his character. I thought he was pretty hilarious being like, oh, I'm in the business, you know, entertainment, playing the piano, trying to pick up everyone.
And he did pick up like a ton of chicks too.
Linnea Quigley.
This was very centered to like, okay, this is the athlete that does this thing and that is the thing he's good at. They're all basically jocks. It's just, what sport do you play? That's the role you play now. If you're gonna be a gymnast, you better have a montage of gymnastics. Which was actually really great. I had a great time watching the gymnastics thing. I didn't have quite the time that the fucking coach did, creepo.
He probably was just checking out the form.
No. So when you're coaching volleyball, you're not like,
No.
Okay.
I'm generally like, yelling like on the sideline.
Get in there! Bump it! Not, get in there, bump it.
No, considering it's junior boys volleyball that I coach. The focus on this film was the killer. It was who the killer was. It wasn't necessarily who was dying, it's just who was killing. And that's where the emphasis was, and they did a great job making you more invested in who this killer is rather than who these people are that are dying. Even though every death wasn't track related, we did have ones that were, and they were very impactful.
Yeah, I would like to mention the worst one though, which is like the knife slash on the neck. You don't see it, the initial impact, and when you do see it, it just looks like ketchup across the neck. Ridiculous. What was your favorite kill?
My favorite kill is the football kill. It's so dumb. He just got skewered. You see this football with this long rod on it.
It's like a martini.
I know.
Yeah, a little olive on a stick.
And then the next thing you see is it in the air, and then him catch it, and he's dead.
But the fact that he's like holding it perfectly, like, yeah, I caught it, coach. My favorite in this movie, and I think one of the funniest ones, is definitely the pole vaulting, just because of how obscure it is. And like, how dumb it must have looked to set up. Essentially, the pole vaulter just goes, he goes over, and then he lands on spikes. Like, if I'm running at something for 60 meters, or I don't know how long they run for 20 meters maybe. Running, I can see a bunch of spikes. They're like, there's no way. I'm looking straight ahead because I need to put my thing in that little divot. I see a bunch of spikes. Unless the spikes were actually embedded into the
I think they were, but you would be able to see that still.
Yeah, and anyone in that high school would have seen somebody setting it all up.
Yeah.
Like, there is a number of spikes, but the fact that that is even a kill, that somebody just like flings himself over with a pole vault and lands as hard as you possibly can on a bed of spikes. I mean, that's great. It could have been shown better. The cuts were kind of shit because it was like pretty choppy. I thought that was hilarious.
The scream was nice.
And one of the funnier ones was when we start to see like the character come into his own, or the killer, where he grabs the fencing sword and just sticks it in the girl's neck and it just pokes right out and just one little spurt of blood pops out. This doesn't fit in anywhere. It's not necessarily a like, it's not really a dislike, but the principal tucking his tie into his pants, that's a fucking trend that never caught on, and I wish it did.
Did you see his
So I
suit?
can make fun of all you nerds.
Did you see his suit?
His suit, the patterns?
Yeah.
Oh, the patterns on that guy's suit, great. That guy just had style.
Graduation is for you!
It's like all of these young rappers trying to start some kind of trend.
Gucci gang, Gucci gang, Gucci gang, Gucci gang, Gucci gang, Gucci gang, Gucci gang.
He was like the first guy. I'm gonna do something that's so bold, and it just never happened. It never caught on.
Bring it back.
Bring it back,
Start it.
please. I'm gonna do that. If I ever accidentally buy a tie that's too long, which I won't because I know exactly how long my ties are. Well, I don't really. I've bought 2 ties in my life. They seem to work out pretty good. But I'm definitely not gonna tuck it in. I gotta cover up my boners because the only time I'm wearing a tie is when I'm with some hot chicks in dresses, probably. Maybe that's what he's doing. The hard way.
The hard way.
Like, I'll just strap that fella in.
He does have a sexy secretary.
What'd she have, like a silk shirt on?
Blouse.
Oh my god. We're going on to our dislikes.
I didn't necessarily enjoy the pacing of this movie. As much as I praise the idea that this wasn't focused on the characters, sometimes you kinda do need that to make the pace go smoother. Because people are just showing up in and out, like Anne, who is Laura's sister. But when all the action is happening, she's not there.
If you're a prominent character, you should probably have more screen time. There were a lot of characters like that, I guess. Maybe that's it. Show them less.
Yeah.
More potential to be a killer.
So it's like,
Because I did think that one guy, I know, sorry to interrupt, but I did think that one guy in the opening sequence that was watching Laura run with the glasses, it focused on him a lot, but probably because he was the only like active person in the crowd. With the pacing, I mean, there's that whole section with the roller rink. They actually play like a 6-minute song. Like a band plays a 6-minute song or so as people are just like roller skating around. Some of them aren't even roller skating. They're just walking really fast. I never did that, but I did used to go to roller rinks, and it was every Saturday, 10 to 4 at Wheelies in Whippy, Ontario, and it was awesome. Picking up all the chicks, making out with them. Pretty successful, I think, back in grade 7 or grade 8. Anyway, I get like a scene like that has to happen in 80s movies. Montages, they happen. If it's not dancing, I guess it's roller skating. But it could have been way shorter. Well, I thought it was funny. I still didn't think it was necessary. Was the principal arguing with the secretary? That's a 20-second joke, not a 3.5-minute joke.
it was just putting focus on other things to distract the audience. And there was way too much distraction going on.
Right, and one of those distractions, which we forgot to mention in the likes, was quality 80s boobs.
And just the closure that you get, it's not satisfying to say the least.
That's true.
Especially
You get like the Laura on the bed situation is kind of weird.
The detective coming into the school was pretty much pointless because he just killed the coach.
Right, and nobody cared that he was there. The coach didn't even care that he was there. And he just, he opened fire on somebody who he had no idea was the killer. He just like, hey, you're close enough to these kids, I'm gonna shoot you in the forest. He was a son of a bitch, that's for sure.
When they're inserting like these authoritative figures so late in the film, it's like, hey, all these killings have been happening for 2 days, and now we're gonna introduce the cops in the last 5 minutes. Like, no, bring them in like 20 minutes in to draw that like, hey, we may have a killer on the loose, we should go question some people.
You're right, like, the fact that anybody had died from a killing wasn't brought up for a very long time. So people were concerned with Laura's death, and 4 people died, and nobody batted a lash. Where's Linnea Quigley? Where's Tony? Like, why aren't they in class? Oh, probably just fucking getting high. That's not a reasonable explanation.
They were waiting for like one person for the team pitcher, and she died. Like she died very early in this movie.
We can't take a newspaper picture without Paula. She's the best cross-country runner we've ever had, and you know it.
2 days later, they completely forgot about her. Like, would you not be concerned? Like, they were so concerned that she wasn't there for the picture, but they weren't concerned that
3 days later, where she didn't show up to any classes
or
like,
graduation.
Right, like it's a pretty big day, as you can tell by the entire reason this movie exists. Now it's time for our final thoughts and ratings. Graduation Day is a classic. It is weird.
Sally, get your little ass up on those bars and go to work.
It is shitty. It is an old school 80s movie. I'm not sure where I stand on this one. I did appreciate like the mystery and the killer, and I did like the kills, but the pacing was terrible. The characters weren't really developed, and I know that's not a huge deal, but I also don't think it was the best movie. It's pretty run-of-the-mill, but it's enjoyable enough. If you're having some drinks and you're hanging out with pals, you know exactly when you're going to want to just have like a spin-off conversation. You can ignore some stuff on screen and just like have a good time. Like I had a really good time watching this, because I got to reminisce about the 80s. Showing my age a little bit. But this is one of those movies that I'll probably watch like a dozen more times before I die. I'm gonna give this 2.5 little cobras out of 5.
Do you like snakes? I call this my little cobra.
Graduation Day was probably one of those films when it first came out and blew people's minds because it had mystery, it had kills, and it had nudity. Fast forward to present day, and the kills not as impactful, the nudity still decent, and the mystery is still good. This was an enjoyable film. The pacing isn't the best, but if you're watching it with someone, it helps a lot. If you're watching it by yourself, you're probably gonna get bored, but when you are with someone, you just have that person you could talk to make the film more interesting. I did enjoy every death scene that we saw. I enjoyed the mystery of the killer, and they did a great job with the red herrings. So with that being said, I'm gonna give this film 3 Vanna Whites before she was flipping letters out of 5.
As always, thank you for watching. Like this video and comment below with other films that you'd like to see us do retrospective reviews of. Definitely drop those in the comments. And if this is your first time here, make sure you subscribe to the channel, stay updated with everything Bloodbath and beyond.